Mr Chair. I thought I'd do something novel and speak to part one. It's clear to me, Mr Chairman, that Mr Phil Twyford is traumatised by the success of Auckland and can't bring himself to talk to the next bill. Part one, Mr Chairman, inserts several new provisions so that local authorities will be required to, 1, have particular regard to the contribution made by particular core services, 2, assess the risks and returns of commercial investments, which I thought would be a good thing, 3, develop a financial strategy and include this in their long-term plan. Again, I would have thought this was a good thing. And in particular, Mr Chair, 4, publish a pre-election report. This is in clause 16. And the information that will be included in the pre-election report for members is set out in Schedule 1 of the bill. By the way, I should say that Part 1, it contains the bulk of the substance of this bill. Part 1 also provides, Mr Chair, for more consistent financial reporting and disclosure of infrastructure service information. For example, it enables regulations to be made that prescribe forms for the funding impact statements to be included in the long-term plans, annual plans and annual reports in Schedule 1. It also enables the Secretary for Local Government to make rules specifying standard performance measures for 5 groups of activities and sets out the purpose and criteria for doing so. These performance measures would be included in the long-term plans and annual plans. These are intended to take effect from 2014. The part amends the definition of community outcomes so that these are about the outcomes a local authority aims to achieve for its communities. This is clause 4.
Is this the hidden
Maybe. It also repeals requirements for local authorities to carry out separate processes for identifying, monitoring and reporting on community outcomes. That's clause 12. It repeals requirements for local authorities to, 1, consider the views of interested or affected persons at 4 specified stages in decision-making process. 4.
4 stages? 4
yes,
stages.
It'll be up to the council to decide how many times they'll consult. 2, to consult on proposals to change the mode of service delivery of a significant activity from a local authority to a council-controlled organisation or other body, clause 11. Council could still decide to do it, it's not a legal requirement. And 3, include certain proposals and decisions in long-term plans. This includes proposals to construct, replace or abandon a strategic asset, clause 14, and proposals for the sale of exchange of endowment land, clause 33. I have to say these have been overwhelmingly received by local government sector. Part 1 removes most funding and financial policies from the long-term plan while requiring separate consultation on some of these policies. That's set out in clauses 18 to 26. The provision of water services. Part 1 of the bill gives local authorities and their communities more options for providing and financing their water services so that they can decide for themselves what is in their best interests. It helps to facilitate private sector investment in water infrastructure. The bill extends permitted limits on water service contracts and joint arrangements with the private sector from 15 to 35 years, which makes these arrangements more workable, clauses 31 and 32. I don't understand the Labour Party's position. They were happy for it to be 15 years, but somehow, suddenly 35 years, it's the end of Western democracy as we know it. And also, look, Mr Twyford keeps yelling out. I think he should concentrate on finding somewhere in the Labour Party where they'd like him to stand. And it would be a positive thing. It also enables, Mr Chairman, councils to build, own, operate transfer schemes by allowing a private partner to open new infrastructure during the contract period. The public would have to be consulted on these proposals and any other kind of joint arrangement. The bill does not require any changes to be made or does not privatise water services. It does not, for example, enable permanent ownership by or transfer of council water services to the private sector. Local government would remain legally responsible for providing the water services and for pricing and policy decisions. Customers would continue to have a direct relationship with the local government organisation, which would be accountable to these customers. The bill prohibits arrangements in which the private partner has the right to revenue from the water service, such as concession or other franchise agreements. It also prohibits the sale or transfer of ownership of existing infrastructure unless, Mr Chairman,
Rodney Hyde.
I'll just, Mr. Chris Arkenvold called out, so I'll give it because I know he's interested. Yes, Part 1 prohibits the sale or transfer of ownership of existing infrastructure unless this is incident to and desirable for the success of the joint arrangement. Again, the public would be consulted. Well, it's so interesting, isn't it, Mr. Chairman? We have Mr. Darren Hughes, who I think lost his seat at the last election. We have Mr. Twyford, Mr. Twyford, who can't. Actually, it's very good, actually. And then Mr. Twyford can't even convince the own Labour Party to let him have a crack at a seat. Mr. Speaker, also too, Mr. Speaker, we're going to have a supplementary order paper to make minor drafting amendments to Part 1 of the bill, and I know Mr. Hughes will be interested in this SOP. Clause 16 is amended to clarify that the provision relates to a local authority referred to in new section 1A. Clauses 25 and 26 are amended to fix cross-reference errors, and clauses 32 to 4 is amended to fix the amending terminology used in the provision. I'm looking forward, Mr. Chairman, to the Labour Party actually addressing Part 1.